morning. Welcome back, everybody. Our starting point this morning is the rescue operations have been suspended in Italy. The death toll in this cruise ship crash is now 11. The captain is under house arrest. Prosecutors say, no, that's not good enough. They would like to see him back in jail. We're going to hear this morning from a husband and wife who survived and have made their way back to the United States. They join us this morning. We appreciate you being with us. Starting point starts right now. Welcome back, everybody. Hope is fading in Italy today that more survivors could be found alive on that cruise ship. Rescue operations are now on hold. The ship apparently is now moving in the water. There are 24 people who are considered to be missing, and that number includes 2 Americans, and the death toll now stands at 11. The captain's been put under house arrest. Prosecutors are appealing that decision. They would like the captain to go back to jail, and we're hearing more of these tapes between the captain and the port authority emerging. Their conversation in Italian seems to show that the captain was safe in his lifeboat and ignoring orders to return to his sinking ship. Listen.
I understand. Listen, there's people who are coming down the stem ladder. You must take that ladder in the opposite direction. Get on board the ship and you tell me how many people there are on board and what do they have. Clear? You tell me if there are children, women, people with special needs, and you tell me how many there are of each of this category. Is that clear? Look, Scatino, you might have been saved from the sea, but I will make sure you go through a very rough time. I will make sure you go through a lot of trouble. Get on board, damn it.
It's interesting to hear the interpreter's voice when you actually can tell the Italian is they're shouting at each other. It's very emotional. There are roughly 4,200 people on board that cruise ship, including a husband and wife, Brian Aho and Joan Fleser. Their 18-year-old daughter was on that ship as well. Thanks for talking with us. When did you get back to the United States?
Yesterday morning, a little after midnight.
Is it terrible to look at those pictures? I mean, what does it feel like to watch that sight?
It's overwhelming. You know, while it was all happening, we were just so focused on getting off the ship, staying together, that we really didn't have a full comprehension of the severity of the issue. It wasn't until the next morning when we came down back to the dock that, you know, we saw that the ship had finally capsized to its present position, and then it was like, oh my God, you know, it really was serious. You just didn't think it could happen.
It was described for us as for people who are having dinner, like you were, that suddenly there was this jolt, and immediately you could tell something was wrong. The ship started to turn.
The ship started to list.
And then what did you do?
The first thing we did was we knew where the lifeboats were. They were on the deck directly above us, so we wanted to make our way to the gangway and up to the boats and get life jackets, obviously. But as we were starting to go towards the gangway, the lights went out, and everyone was screaming.
What did you do? How did you stay with each other? Because I know your daughter, who's 18, was with you. I mean, did you hold hands? What did you do?
We made a chain. And
it was pitch black?
And no one could have broken that chain, I can guarantee that.
How did you get life jackets? Because it sounds, by descriptions, that there was this just frantic, chaotic rush for the life jackets.
The problem was that everyone coming out of the dining room, which was half the ship, they didn't have life jackets because they're back in the staterooms. So when we got up on deck, I checked the first locker I could find along the gunnels, and there were no life jackets left. Checked a couple of more lockers, and there weren't any. And finally, about the 4th one, there were 3 life jackets. I dove into the locker.
Was the ship at this point just turning over?
Yeah, it was.
How did you hold on?
There were railings along the deck there, so we were just holding on to the railing to keep from sliding towards the ocean.
Did you think you were going to die?
Not at that point. We didn't think it was as serious at that point until it really started listing, and that we were having trouble at the lifeboat station because there was no guidance.
What was going on at the lifeboat station?
A lot of panicking people.
Screaming?
Screaming.
Did the crew behave responsibly?
There was no crew.
I mean, I'm wondering, and I think a lot of us are wondering, was there any kind of organization for you? I mean, was there anyone leading you?
There was only one person that told us which way to go.
Who was that?
It was a showgirl in the restaurant. And she showed us which way to get out the quickest.
So you're really just depending on each other, it sounds like.
Really.
So you were able to fight your way into a lifeboat?
Pretty much. You know, the crowd was pushing and shoving so much that, you know, the way the flow of the people went, I ended up first in the boat. And
First of us.
The first of us. And then Brian. and Alana was starting to get separated.
Your daughter?
Yeah,
Yes.
and some man was trying to elbow her out of the way. And
What did you do? What a joke.
well, actually, at that point, I was in the boat, which brought my eye level to the feet of the passenger still in the boat. I saw her feet. I grabbed her ankles, and I pulled her in the boat. And
How's she doing?
She was the last one on the boat.
She's pretty upset. She was going to come with us, but really decided she didn't want to go through this again.
And did you end up in the lifeboat, in the water, in the darkness?
Yes.
And what was that like? How did you get to the land, and what happened?
Well, it was a relatively short distance, but the most frightening part was when the lifeboat was trying to disengage from the ship. It was obvious that, you know, this lifeboat hadn't been released in a long time because when they finally pulled the pins, paint is flying, and I mean, they just kept painting over it and over and over it. And so, you know, the crew, you know, never practiced releasing the lifeboats.
It sounds like you were thinking that in your mind. Like, when was the last time this lifeboat was used? That
When we saw the
kinda
paint
scares
chips
you.
all fluttering down.
That doesn't sound like it was used in drills very often.
Right,
then.
exactly.
I mean, we've been on other cruises, and we've seen crews do their own lifeboat drills where they release
Test
the
the
lifeboats
gear.
and drive them in.
So when you hear that the captain appears to have abandoned ship, was in an early lifeboat, sounds like earlier maybe than the one you were on, and that he's having this fight back and forth with the Port Authority.
We were angry.
Yeah.
Are you angry?
It's unbelievable that, you know, someone can take, you know, such a you know, major responsibility of thousands of people's lives and just throw it to the wind, you know, just disregarded.
He's disgraced his profession and his country, and hopefully the courts will take care of it.
The court has let him out on home arrest, even though the prosecutor, I think, is going to later today sort of fight to get him back in jail. What do you... I guess the argument is that he's not a flight risk, although when I read these transcripts, I think this is a definition of a flight risk. The first thing he did was get out... I mean, no joke, I'm not being funny.
It's a pattern of behavior.
You know, she's not being funny.
No.
So that's exactly what part of the CNN Wire addresses, that issue, that he's not a flight risk. And I think, like in the States, when they say flight risk, they're saying he's not going to go to another country. I would be interested to hear if the judge did take his passport. And another part of the conditions, the Wire says, there's no risk of committing the crime again, which is also kind of laughable. The judge says in her ruling that Schettino expressed intent to change life and no longer go on board ships. Is that insulting?
That's bogus. You know, just to be blunt about it, that's ridiculous. You know, the decisions that this man made, or lack of decisions, have cost at least 11 people their lives. You know, you can't take that lightly. And just to put him under house arrest is, you know, like giving him a slap on the hands.
What do you want? I mean, is there anything, are you thinking lawsuit? Are you thinking I'll never cruise again? Are you thinking I want not just the captain to pay, but I want Carnival Cruises to pay? I mean, what would you...
We're waiting to hear from Costa first, which there's always been a lack of communication, and that's been a problem. We're not jumping to any conclusions on how they're going to respond. We only lost personal property.
I have to imagine the trauma, though.
But they haven't reached out to you particularly?
We haven't heard it.
Actually, there was a voicemail
that said
yesterday that said they were checking to see if we got home. They would reimburse us for the full cost of the cruise.
You think?
Gee, thanks.
Wow, wow.
That's
Voicemail,
also
too, right?
Yeah, and articles, but there were no details as to how much or what. So we're waiting to see. But one issue I would like to bring up is, you know, because we lost our passports, all our documentation, we had to go to the embassy to get new passports. And we had no help, no support from the embassy whatsoever, other than just getting the passports. The other nationals
The American Embassy in
the
Italy.
American Embassy. The other nationals had their ambassadors coming to the hotels to help their constituents, their people. I called the embassy and told them the situation. They said, well, come on down and get a new passport. I said, well, you know, we're here at the hotel. We have no transportation. We have no money. They said, well, grab a cab. Well, we have no money. We can't
It just sounds like
borrow
chaos
it.
from
They
start
said
to-
borrow it. And From whom? I mean, we were on this boat for 5 hours. We don't know anybody. And it was just unbelievable. Thank goodness the hotel supplied a shuttle and we got to go to the embassy.
Joan Fleser and Brian Aho, thank you for coming in to talk to us. I know you have a lot to do, so we appreciate that we're one of your stops in here. This is a really just crazy update.